Welcome to 10X Live, the show where we're revolutionizing business one strategy at a time. At 10X Solutions, we have a bold vision to democratize business excellence. We believe every organization deserves the tools to thrive. Our secret sauce? The perfect blend of cutting-edge AI, the proven power of organizational health, and growth management. We assemble genius teams equipped with advanced analytics to supercharge decision-making and skyrocket efficiency. From AI-augmented strategy sessions that spark creativity, to precise planning powered by human ingenuity, we're your catalyst for sustainable growth. We keep it real, we keep it honest, and we keep you ahead of the curve. Join us for the 10X revolution. We're not just adapting to change, we're leading it. Let's map out a future where your business doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is 10X Live. Let's transform business together.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Kyle Vernon from Vernon Business Partners, and today we have a guest with Denise Nowell, and we'll get into that in just a bit, but this is 10X Live, episode 5, I believe. So as you'll see, we will not have the bearded gentleman that we normally do. Jay is off on a boat today, enjoying himself, and so we're going to go and work through this and talk all things Working Genius, which we are excited about. We love talking about. For those that have attended before, you know that's something we love, something that we feel is very beneficial to our small business, big business alike, and we also get off on our own little tangents at times as well. But additionally, we might not have as much AI talk. Chat GPT might not be coming up, although I do use it regularly. Jay is absolutely the subject matter expert with 10X Solutions. And so I will just start with this. So anyone that's had the opportunity to get a little flooded lately, get a lot of rain, I'm feeling it all the way up in Michigan. And I have to admit that it is unique to me. One thing about Michigan that is pretty nice is that we don't really have that type of weather. We don't have the big bugs, but we also don't have the great sunshine and the warm weather like most places. But now we're getting a little bit of rain, and I'm not used to that. Little bit of flooding up to 9 inches in some areas. So I don't know, Denise, what part of the country are you in? I'm in Michigan. Remind me where you're from.
So we are hailing from North Carolina. So we have all the heat and lots of sunshine.
Nice, rubbing it in. One of
right.
the Carolina states, highly sought after, beautiful
Yeah,
area. I've been there once.
that's
Feels a
right.
little bit like Michigan areas, actually. Of course, you're coastal, and we
Yeah,
have the Great Lakes. And
that's right.
so, again, I'm Kyle with Vernon Business Partners. One of the reasons that I'm here is that I love to coach. I love to mentor. My 6 types of working geniuses actually echo that. I didn't know that, but that's something when we've used, if you were part of the live stream, the first episode that we did, we showed one of the chat GPTs that actually plugs in your 6 working geniuses and encourages you to what type of job you should do, where you'd fit really well based on your frustrations, and most importantly, your geniuses. And one of the first things it said for me, which would be true for Denise as well, only our resumes are probably a little bit different, is that leadership and coaching is right up our alley. And that's because you'll see in our titles, we are the enthusiastic encouragers. And you know what? That is near and dear to my heart. That is where I've always been. I love seeing other people succeed. I've never wanted to be the Michael Jordan. I like being the Scottie Pippen. I have no problem with being that. Tenacity is not my thing. You need somebody to hit a game-winning shot and take it home and finish it. Probably going to pass. I don't want all that glory. I'd love to get it to somebody else and let them take it home. And so again, we're here for you. We're here for our audiences of helping out and increasing productivity. But for a moment, I'm going to step back. I'd love to hear a little bit about our guest here today with Denise. And if you can tell us a little bit about your company, Journey Mentoring, how you got to that, why you're there, and a little bit about, your background.
Sure. Sure. So, thank you, Kyle. Super excited to be here. And yes, we are missing Jay, but hopefully we will hold the ship together while he's off on another ship, right? That's good. Yeah. So actually, I was reared overseas in the Philippines and moved back to America when I was 19. and really just didn't understand what American sarcasm was. So I'm a fish out of water in that area. But thankfully, I've adapted, and it's great to be able to catch on to some of those jokes and stuff. But it took me a little while. My learning curve was pretty steep. I'll say that.
Do you have anything that was like an aha moment to where something you reflect on to where you're like, this culture is much different than my first 19 years and on the
Yeah.
sarcasm side? I was
Oh,
raised with a lot of sarcasm, so I'm well
I
aware.
know. I know. Most American families like that is their language is
It is.
sarcasm.
It is.
Yeah. I remember this wasn't so much like harsh sarcasm as it was just like statement wise. I had a boss, one of my early jobs. He was talking about some stuff that wasn't really going well with the company and places where we needed to make some adjustments. And he said, "Y'all, we have got to wake up and smell the coffee." And sitting in my chair, thankfully only in my inside voice, I said, "We don't have a coffee maker here." Just way right over my head. Yeah.
That's so genuine and sincere. That
That's
there's
right.
something pretty amazing about that. That's authentic.
Pretty
That's
crazy. Pretty
a great
crazy.
story.
So that was kind of my launch into America. Love it though. I've lived in the South most of the time. I was in Virginia for a while, and so I actually got introduced to Working Genius when I was leading a team. We were a small nonprofit and doing really good work, but as many nonprofits, we were just understaffed and overworked.
Yeah.
And so when Patrick Lencioni introduced this, I was like, oh man, something that will help me leverage each of my team members to do the things that they are the best at. And then as we start staffing, we'll staff in those areas where we have frustrations.
Yeah.
So that was my intro to it. And then not long after that, I left that role to start my own business. And so I was the epitome of a small business owner who at the time couldn't afford to hire staff. So my goal was, I know enough about Working Genius right now that I've got to have a marketing person, but not only do they need to be a marketing person, they're going to have to be a marketing person with ET as their
Mm,
geniuses.
mm.
I needed someone that I knew was going to be the enablement person and they were going to get the things over the finish line. So I didn't need a social media person who was a wanderer. Right. And so that was super great. And I realized, wow, this is a way to serve other small businesses by letting them know that, hey, you don't have to do it all yourself. You just need to know what you need and then go hire or contract out for that. So that's a little bit of my journey in Working Genius. And then I got introduced to the concept of coaching. A couple years ago and just realized that I was made for this. I just had such a passion for it. And as you said at the beginning of this, like the galvanizing piece just really, really lends itself toward a leadership style that is a coaching style of leadership. And I'm just sold 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I need a team. Like in order for me to operate well, that's where it brought me joy, but I also immediately, whatever job I started, I was always creating networks and I was
Yes.
creating groups. Like my first marketing job, we had all these field reps and inside reps. And I was like, I said, I know I'm the least qualified person to run this meeting, but all of you are smarter than me and I need help with this. And so as part of the galvanizing piece, that's the arrangement, right? You're getting the right people at the table.
Yes.
And I didn't know it. I didn't have the language at the time. And
Yeah.
I was enabling this to happen. And it's something that got implemented. And it wound up being a stepping stone to my first promotion at that company. But I didn't have that language. That was 2015. I didn't
Mhm.
know. I was just starting my third step in my career, I would say at that point, with transitioning out of the exercise world. But that's the cool thing in Working Genius for myself. I was laid off last fall, but it was an opportunity where I was implementing this at my previous company. And
Mm.
this gave me the tools to empower me to know that I just wanted to tell everybody about it. I couldn't stop talking about it. I wanted to get this in the hands of our entire department. When I was laid off, the thing I was most sad about was that I knew that this was going to lose traction because I was the one
Mm.
rallying it and there's
Mm.
just way too much disruption after a giant layoff like that. And so to this day, I'm still sad about it because I feel like they are missing out on
Right.
something huge, even though a
Mm.
lot of the leaders got on board. But I was kind of going through it backwards because I hadn't been certified at that point because I was waiting for the company to pay for it um, before, and I should have just done it. So I'd read the books, listened to the podcasts, kind of
Uh-huh.
self-taught, and then the facilitator, it was worth every dollar, in my
That's
opinion, with all the resources on that. But just
couldn't
like
agree
you
more.
said, you got this tool and
Mm-hmm.
it empowered you once it credentialed you in terms of knowing what you wanted to be and why you were and how you ticked and
That's
the
right.
missing pieces, right? For
Yeah.
where you are now.
Yeah, it's
Genuinely
been
agree.
amazing. And I loved what you said a minute ago about the galvanizer piece and using that word arranging. That
Hmm.
is what a galvanizer does, is it that the galvanizer just helps arrange things so that you've got the right people sitting in the right seats. And then you're figuring out like what's missing and let's plug them in here or
Yeah.
there. Super great. Super
Yeah.
great.
You
Yeah.
can kind of see what you can see what's kind of missing, and you can also see what's in other people that they can't even see. The one of the drawbacks with our GE is that sometimes we see something in people that's not actually there. But
Right.
that's the only drawback, not the only drawback. We have lots of drawbacks, right?
I'm sure.
But when we're looking at our geniuses, that's one of the things where we have to be leery of it. And I've witnessed that as a leader. I've pulled people along too long instead
Yeah,
of
that's right.
um, empowering them to do more. I kept
Yes.
thinking that I'll just get them to that next step. But once I had this, it was something that I could keep in mind. Once I had 6 types of working genius language, I knew
Hmm.
that that was a barrier and it opened my eyes to help me
Yeah.
move forward
Yeah.
appropriately.
Yeah. And I would say to that kind of point of where we have to be a little cautious as galvanizing leaders, we might see stuff in people or keep them too long or whatever. The more I learned about this and the more I started living into surrounding myself with the other geniuses, it ended up being that my operations person was a discerner.
Mm,
And so that actually, the gift of her discerning for me allowed me to be a stronger leader
yeah.
because she was helping me discern, okay, these are some things that you're going to need to watch out about, or this is what's kind of going on, like this is the water cooler conversation that maybe you're not aware of because you see
Yeah.
the sunny side, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's such a gift when you can lean into what this other genius is bringing to you that helps you actually do your job better.
Yes. I agree. And I think wonder and discernment is
Mhm.
probably two of the more misunderstood in my opinion when we go through the model, which I think I'll take a step back. So there's probably some
Mhm.
people in our audience that haven't had the opportunity
Yeah.
to listen or dive into the 6 working geniuses. And one of the analogies in my head, one of the stories that I think always really resonates is the quote from Blockbuster. They asked him and said, "Is Netflix a threat?" And whoever the main guy was at that point laughed and said, "No, there's a nostalgia of going in and reading the backs of DVDs and walking through and picking them out." And so the reason I lead with that is that if somebody was had the gift of wonder in this organization, I'm sure somebody did, but this genius isn't often elevated, they would have seen, hey, you know what? Why are we doing things the way we do them? Do they have to be done like this? Just asking those simple questions. And
Mhm.
when people think of wonder, they think probably more childish to where my son's just asking me like, how does a car drive? Where
Mhm.
does it go? Why do we breathe air? Like those general questions. That's not really what wonder is. Wonder is like, hey, how can this be better? What can we do to make something different? It's a giant picture and it starts the whole working model, and that's wonder. And then it goes to the person that loves solutioning. And so the inventor is the next one in the ideation phase. And so these are paired in twos. There's 6 total of the working geniuses. And so then if we're talking the blockbuster analogy, they should say, well, maybe we can at least do Redbox, right? Like we've seen this transition. Like they could have started at least diversifying or dabbling in it somewhere. and they could have come out with Redbox. They could have come out with another streaming service, and they could have kept their stores, right? They could have at least brought those three ideas, and then those three ideas could go to a discerner. And that
Right.
discerner is kind of your weather forecaster. They're like, hey, yeah, let's look at these. These are potential outcomes with the discerner. So,
Mhm.
you know, people genuinely like to sit at home a lot. So they might forecast being like, you know what, people might find it more convenient to not take 30 minutes out of their night and have pizza delivered instead of going and picking it up and then spending time to pick out a movie. So discerner might see that and be like, oh, okay, so how do we change that? Well,
Mhm.
Redbox might be good, but do people want to have to go and drop it off? It's a little bit more convenient. You don't have to walk in. But this streaming service, I mean, it puts it right in people's home. We don't have to have stores, right? So a discerner is going to think through and start thinking of those possibilities. And so once you discern it, it goes back and forth to the uh, invention person, discerner. They get the correct one after it's been discerned and thought out, and then it gets finally to me, right? Which is what
Mhm.
makes this working model fun, because a lot of that stuff is frustrating to me. Invention and wonder is my frustrations. Like they take a lot of time. They're slow. I like to move fast. And so a lot of times I love it when people bring that. That's why Jay's always been great. So you bring
Mhm.
the idea of like, hey, we're going to do a streaming service here. I'm like, that's a great idea. Let me go find the people. All right, I need the marketing department. I need the salespeople. We need the people that are going to put this together. I'm going to get them in a room. And if they get off tangent, I'm going to push them back, right? That's what we
Yes.
do. We kind of help guide them back and forth. And I don't feel bad about it because I'm so excited about the idea, and it's not my agenda. It was somebody else's
Mhm.
thought, idea, their work, right? And so again, this is a tool that you have to be humble about, and it kind of gives you the tools to be okay that you're not the inventor person. And
Yeah.
then it goes to our next one, which is the enablement person, which enablers get a bad rap, but you know what? Everybody in the organization needs somebody that can flex to somebody else's schedule. Everybody needs that person that you go and ask them and be like, yeah, I'll help. Don't you
Yeah.
want to know what it is? Nope. I don't care. I'm just
Right.
happy to help, right? That's
Right.
what I loved it. I loved when I get
Yeah.
interrupted as a leader and somebody would say, hey, Kyle, I need your help. I'm like, good. I wanted to be done with that spreadsheet anyway. I didn't like that tenacity work. And then your tenacity person, that person's got blinders on and they're getting to the finish line and taking it home.
Mhm.
And that's how the working genius model is. It's those six geniuses, really high elevation of wonder to that person that lands the airplane. Is there
Mhm.
anything that I missed there, Denise? On
Did you do tenacity?
a little bit.
Okay.
I don't do tenacity well, so I,
Right.
I probably didn't justify it, but
Yeah. They
um,
are the ones that gets it over the finish line, though. So that's good.
they,
Yeah. That's good.
and they see finish lines. They're the
They
ones that.
do.
So out of my family, we've all married tenacity people. Apparently, we needed that. All four of us siblings have married tenacity people, and they are the first ones on the 4th of July that are sitting in the water with their drinks because they got all their things done while the rest of us are working on the other things, finishing the dishes, talking. Like we don't actually get out there, and they're the ones that actually go and enjoy it and sit down because they finished. They're
That is
done. They're like, there's
great.
nothing else to do.
They
And it
checked all the boxes.
they did. And they just get to sit back and relax. And it's something that now that I know that gives them joy and energy with
Mm,
the completion and
that's
seeing the job
awesome.
through. It's pretty cool. And boy, do I need that person in my life,
Yeah.
just like you started
Yeah.
with when you said you need to hire additional
Yes.
staff.
That's right. That's right. I was like, man, it's not as much as the person as it is, do they have the geniuses? And that's another thing that is a tool that's available through Working Genius. And so, like, if you're looking for a facilitator to help you walk through that, they can also help you assess, like, what does it look like to hire the right person,
Mm,
to make sure that you get the next right fit. What geniuses do they have to have, and what geniuses can they absolutely not have in order to do this job well? And I guess this would be a good place to do like a little shout out for Jay. With his AI tool that he's created, it actually speaks working genius language, which is amazing. And it's something that you can actually plug in and just say, okay, if I'm looking to hire someone to do these kinds of tasks, then what would be the best geniuses for that and why?
yes. It does. That's exactly what that tool does. And that's one of the things for those that for our audience that's listened on the other episodes. It's what made Jay walk away. He started using AI, something that was quoted out for 300 HR hours. He got done in 8 hours.
Wow.
Rewrote all of these job descriptions,
Mm,
and they checked out great. And so he took it one step further once he figured out about the 6 working geniuses, and he started putting that language in there to where you can write a job description and you can narrow it down to really what is needed. And for me, somebody that was looking for a job recently,
hmm.
I would have loved it because every single job description says you have to do everything great. It just
Yes.
does. Makes you be,
Yeah.
and it's not true. We all know that's not true. Uh, we have to do all 6 in order to be successful,
Hmm.
but we don't have to do all those well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That is just such a great way to talk about leadership, and the way that you want to build an organization is you don't want everybody in the organization to look like you.
Hmm.
We might think so at the beginning, but the more we surround ourselves with people that look like just like us, the more we only get done what we like to get done.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have a wanderer in the room, then we don't have anybody raising the red flag, right? Because we need someone occasionally that will raise the red flag.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
And
great.
celebrated. It
Hmm.
there was a previous leader that I worked with, and they were strong in discernment and strong in tenacity. And so we get to the end of the meeting, which this is the wrong elevation. They would bring in all the discernment, right? We are at the completion of the meeting. We're getting ready to land the airplane, and all of a sudden we're pulling back up the discernment. And it was
Yeah.
frustrating to all of us, but we didn't
Yeah.
really know what the language was. We couldn't figure it out. And once I understood that that was giving that person energy, joy, and I could take that frustration part of it and just
Hmm.
listen to the actual words and content,
Hmm.
it was insightful, helpful, and needed. We just needed to change at which part it was coming into the conversation and earlier, right? And I
That's
think that happens in organizations. Invention and tenacity are probably the two most that are most celebrated. You get your
right.
solutions guy and your finish guy,
Hmm.
especially as a people leader. Are you kidding me? I can give somebody a task and they can create their own solutions, and they'll
Yeah.
finish it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the easiest salary I'll ever have.
That's
But
right.
we know not everybody works with that. So
It's true.
as a executive coach, a coach in general with yourself,
Mhm.
as you hear, corporations, unemployment is relatively stable and looks pretty good, but it feels like for middle management leaders, big corporations, there's major layoffs going on right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
As you reflect in leadership or kind of what you've seen, um, with your coaching and maybe in big corporations, you mentioned earlier that you don't want to hire people that look alike. I know my feelings on that, but do you feel like that's something that's happening, or do you, as you step back
Mhm.
and reflect on this,
Mhm.
what do you
That's
think's
a
going on there other than financials not being right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, yes, that obviously financials play a big part into it. I do think that there is also this. We walked through these difficult years of 2020 to 2022 and part of 23, trying to figure out, are we working from home anymore or are we not? And now we're coming back out of that, and I think there's kind of this level set that's happening with a lot of our companies, and especially those larger companies who are really, I mean, for all the things that seem difficult, um, it can't be easy to be one of those large organizations right now, trying to navigate such a different landscape. And I do think that organizations, companies as a whole, are trying to figure out, how do we leverage in ways where we can have a broader and deeper impact, but at the same time, how do we keep the company stable
Yeah.
while we're trying to navigate all of these tumultuous waters? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that's going on there, and I do think. I mean, I would say that I am a very on fire ambassador for Working Genius, but like you were saying before, like, how sad for the company that ended up letting you and some others go, not just for the sadness of what happened to cause that, but also to then lose momentum on being able to leverage what does it look like to have the right people in the right positions
Yes.
throughout the company.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And for equity purposes, which I get it, I do think this tool would actually overcome that. But you
Hmm.
have good employees that get bad ratings, and then you have average employees that get good ratings, and some of that's bad leadership, but a lot of it's just not knowing. And so I think of like strength finders, which we mentioned Ranger with galvanizing, which that was one of my top 5. Like, so strength finders has some of that language, but then
Uh-huh.
how do you bring in 36 strengths into one spreadsheet that know how to use it
Right.
as a productivity tool?
Yeah.
I just don't know that you can, but I love strength finders because it was the right direction of focusing on the strengths. Like, it was one step closer to what I think uh, Working Genius is, with the
Hmm.
right influence there. But when I think of our team, so much of it, I don't think there was discernment at the top.
Hmm.
Definitely wasn't wonder at the top.
Hmm.
Not a lot of enablement. I feel like the solution people and the tenacity people, I don't even know that galvanizing's necessarily there. But
Mm.
when you start getting into those two and you don't have discernment, you don't have necessarily that good gut feeling, right? So
Right.
what do they rely on?
Yeah.
Data.
Instinct or data. That's
Yeah.
right.
And
That's
so it was
right.
all spreadsheets at the top.
Hmm.
And so they're like, I don't know, we're just gonna hire a third party and we're gonna cut
Yeah.
the books.
Yeah.
Cultures, morale's going down. We don't
Hmm.
know why. They're working from home.
Hmm.
Like, we had conversations all the time, like we feel like we've given them everything that they've wanted, and yet the
Hmm.
culture's still not right.
Yeah.
What we find out with Working Genius is it doesn't matter what you give them if they're not doing a job that gives them energy and joy.
That's right.
And,
That's
and
right.
so we're promoting on past work. We had a lot of
Hmm.
people that came in from inbound calls to an outbound call marketing, and they've been conditioned and they're
Right.
really good. Somebody that's a double responder. So you have
Yes.
3 of the geniuses that are double responsive, to where they have to be invited in to usually use those
Hmm.
geniuses. So you might have that person, if you're a leader watching right now, you have that person that you ask for their insight, but it's the only way you get it out of them. But they always have really good insight, right? They're
Right.
probably a discerner of some sort or wonder, and you have to invite those people in. And if they're double responsive, then they just don't talk very much. But it doesn't mean that it's not that they don't want to, or they don't have good thoughts, or they're not a good employee. But without this language, you don't know, right?
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's just something that I've seen within the corporate world, were some of my observations. We just started
Mhm.
diving in, and it still gets me fired up to this day of just thinking, man, what change we could have done if we
Yeah.
would have had this and
Yeah.
really changed our department. Because otherwise our department was like, hey, 8 calls a day, record your notes. Like, everybody, they were just looking for robotic
Right.
formats, and
Right.
you can only get that right sometimes. Everybody can work a
Right.
decent interview, not
Hmm.
everybody, but you get some of
Hmm.
those people with the things that don't fill them up. Yeah, they can do it for a while.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
saw burnout,
Yeah.
just like everybody else is seeing.
Truth, truth. Well, that's a great segue for us to talk a little bit about. So we know there's 6 geniuses, and everybody has 2 geniuses, and so maybe we could touch on everybody also has 2 competencies,
Yes,
and then everybody has 2 frustrations.
yes,
So yeah, let's dive into that for a little bit.
yeah.
Good.
That sounds good. I'd love to hear. And I went through all 6. Let's hear how those break down a little bit, Denise.
Yeah. So for your 2 geniuses, these are the things that Kyle said just a second ago. This is what brings you joy. Like
Yep.
this, you can do this all day long. You're like a Yeti cup with a lid on. Like you can do this work and you're going to keep the coffee hot. It's not a problem. Your competencies, these are areas that can be tricky. This might be where you actually know how to do the job and you can perform well,
Hmm.
but you're more like a good cup without the lid on. You're going to be able to do this work for a while, but it's really eventually going to actually take from you and not give.
Yep.
Where the more you do the work that's in your genius, the more it brings joy. And so it just kind of like perpetuates itself.
Yes.
Where with this, you're kind of like a slow leak. Like I can do it and I
Mm.
can do it well, but I'm going to be a slow leak on that in my competencies. And then when I get to my frustrations, these are these are the ones where I am a styrofoam cup with a hole in 2 sides and the bottom. Right? I'm like I would really rather just go back on the monkey bars and
Yeah.
play than have to do this work right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's not work that we have to do in our geniuses, our competencies, and our frustrations. But what we want to look at is, to your point of this large company, is where are we identifying where each person's geniuses are, and how are we plugging them into those areas so that they're actually not getting that burnout by having to do the work that still needs to be done but could be done by someone else.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love that.
And I've been challenged by some of my clients lately. They're like, I get joy out of a lot of them though. Like I can get joy out of tenacity, and I can get joy out of all six geniuses. And so I think joy and satisfactions can be there with any of them.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing that I've been trying to differentiate that I don't think the other tools recognize is the energy. So a
Yeah.
lot of times I will go into this live stream
Mm-hmm.
and I will think I need a little bit of caffeine.
Mm.
By the end of this, I never do, because what am I doing right now? Like I am galvanizing and
Yes.
enabling the audience to gain a tool that I think will really change your small business or your large business.
That's
And I don't
awesome.
need it. And that's energy. I want to keep going after this. So
Mm.
I think even with the geniuses, more than that, where you can recognize if it's truly a genius or not, because we have those people who are like, well, I'm good at all six. I get joy out of all six, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true, but do you get one of those to where it gives you energy to want to keep going, something to where you want to work
Mm-hmm.
to exhaustion
Mm-hmm.
versus being empty? Like
Yes.
that's where, or
Yes.
you can be tired and exhausted, but something where you're not drained and then you can't get up
Correct.
the next day. Like you go
That's
to bed
right.
and you sleep well, right?
Yeah.
Because you just had a
Yeah.
really productive,
So good.
energizing work day in your geniuses. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that is,
That is,
you're right.
yeah,
You're
that is powerful. I love that analogy of, like, yes, I could also see someone being in a type of business because of the type of work you do. Say it's a charitable foundation or whatever. I could see finding joy in all the things that I do,
Yeah,
right? I
absolutely.
could see finding joy in all the things that I do, but I could also see that while I find joy in all the things that I do because I believe in the mission of the organization, at the end of the day, am I getting energy from doing this work, or am I getting energy from doing that work?
Yeah.
That's a great differentiator. I
Well,
love that.
and so I've realized it with my coaching. So I'm doing it for little
Mhm.
kids and I can get away with it now. But if I have to coach X's and O's and come up with innovative plays, like I was coaching flag football and everybody was doing these wild plays, it was overwhelming and it wasn't fun for me because I wasn't truly coaching at that point. Now I'm going and I'm sitting down, I'm drawing X's and O's, being like a fake toss here, fake throw there, behind the back, and the kids loved it. They were having a lot of fun with it. So I felt bad because I was actually ceiling at that point because I couldn't figure out how to do that. But if you would have had somebody that just was an innovative wonder and
Yes.
invention, just drawing up these plays, they would have
Yes.
ate this up. That would have been their favorite part. And I needed somebody to be able to hand me that and be like, hey, all credits to them. This is how we're going to execute it. And I can't wait. And so that's
Mm.
why I see this even changing. I see this revolutionizing sports at some point. Because right
Mm.
now, the head coach makes the most money, but some of them fizzle out. You get these offensive coordinators that go and they're not great coaches. Well, it's probably because they're very innovative. They probably
Yeah.
wondered a lot, but now all of a sudden they have to do something maybe they don't like, which could be galvanizing. And so
Right.
I think you need these certain partners. And I reached out to Pat once. I said, you really need to break down Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, because I think the reason they were great is because they had four of the six geniuses. I really do, with that relationship, because Bill fell off the earth after Tom left. So it just continues to be
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I wish I had this tool early on
Yeah.
in my career earlier.
Agreed. Oh my goodness, I wish I'd known about it earlier too. You also just touched on something that I think would be great to dive into, is what can make a team kind of like a dream team when they
Mm,
have the pairing of your two geniuses and their two geniuses and the synergy that comes from that. So what I brought up earlier, that my operations person was a discernment. She was discernment and tenacity. So she was
Mm.
a great pairing to my
Oh, wow.
galvanizing and enablement, right? And I look back now and think, had I known the language of working genius then, I think we could have conquered the world,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We just needed one person with wonder and invention.
Yes.
But I can
That,
see, yeah, that would be a great case study, is to see when you align people with these two geniuses and these two geniuses, like um, just that exponential 10x
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
compounding that happens. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
That's
I
my
wonder if
wife.
that's why, I wonder if that's part of why you and Jay, like you guys have just been crushing it already with what you're doing. And I just like, even being an observer for your first several episodes, just watching the energy between the two of you. And then I know you've already shared a few times that he's already helping you in areas where you're like, okay, I know I want to do this,
Yeah.
but help me on the invention side. I think that's awesome.
It works great. And it's the only
Mhm.
reason we talk to each other. I mean, and that's not anything to do with Jay not liking me or me not
Yeah.
liking Jay. When you talk about butts in the seats,
Mhm.
you and I would probably hit it off even faster than most because we both
Right.
get the same things and we talk round and round and we'd have a great meeting and we'd
Yes.
leave and have all this energy. And I don't know if
Nothing got done.
yeah, and I had so many of those meetings. I kept going to those same leaders. And later
Mhm.
on, I found out it's because they had the same geniuses. And really all we were doing was just giving each other energy versus really productivity.
Right.
And
That's right.
it's where working
Mm.
genius differentiates. And
Yes.
so it encouraged me. We mapped the team out. I knew what I needed in a productivity model or tool. And I was getting ready to launch this to a team. And I called the individual and I said, so you're our primary discerner and you're the only person I can't get on board with this working genius out of leadership. I said, what can I do? And you know what? He was really transparent. He said, I don't like galvanizing. And it was his frustration.
Okay.
Galvanizing enablement
Okay.
was his frustration. So I was his frustration over and over. So I knew I had to be careful with how I was galvanizing him. I had to be
Okay.
careful with how I was enabling him.
Yeah.
But his discernment was so transparent and it would have hurt
Mm.
without this language.
Mm.
But knowing this language and that he was doing it with the best intent. And he even said at one time, he's like, I don't dislike you. I don't dislike this idea. There's something in my gut that doesn't
Mm.
speak to it. And that's what discernment is, right? He's like, I need a little bit more to go on at this point for me to be able to really get the buy-in. And it helped me because a lot of times I'll just show
Mm.
up and probably too charismatic sometimes, and there's those people that turns it off, and so it helps me to turn it down and know how to rally the troops different because you got to know your
Mm.
audience.
It's true. It's true because we do wear that title underneath. If you see next to our names and or underneath our names next to that GE, that's the galvanizing and enablement, and then the little tagline that they give for the galvanizing and enablement is the enthusiastic encourager. And I think that sometimes to a discerner that can come off as, oh, you're just here with the cheer, and
Yeah.
you're just here with the rah rah, and there's real work that needs to get done.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
So how wonderful that that discerner was able to just be like vulnerable enough with you to say, don't disagree. This is what I need.
Yeah.
So good.
But it gave us the language, and when he got done, he felt like it lifted something off his chest. Right? I
Yeah.
reached out and I said, "You are better at this genius than me. You are the discerner." Like, can you imagine somebody coming up and saying, "Hey, I want to I want to give you some energy. I want to give you some joy right now." That's basically what it is, but it's in the workplace and it's going to be productive. Like, we're
Yes.
not talking water cooler talk. We're not talking venting at the lunch table. We're
Right.
talking real life productivity, making a
Mhm.
phone call, one on one meeting, and it
That's
goes
great.
faster. We were
Yeah.
in a meeting using this tool, and we had been working on implementing something for a year and a half, trying to get people to do um, a certain task, and it was so simple. And our primary leader was a wonder inventor, and he just couldn't figure out why he couldn't get any traction. And the more we dug on it, and once we realized we had that, it's because we were just letting him lead the charge. And pretty much all he was saying is like, guys, that this has to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that just doesn't resonate with many people. There
Right.
wasn't a why in it. He knew he created the solution, but he needed somebody to help take it to the finish line. But it all made sense to us. He always explained it, and we just were trying to back him. And if we would have,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what we know now, we've been like, hey,
Yeah.
Mark, you know what? This would be a lot better if we delivered this as your middle managers, because a lot of us had galvanizing in our
Mm-hmm.
genius department. And I think you need that with the middle leaders. It's something that I think corporate America is really going to miss out on, because the middle leaders have been really cut out right now. Those translators
You're
from the
right.
really hard data people,
Mm-hmm.
and then down to those middle empathetic leaders are not going to translate the messages
That's
in this
right.
high performance environment.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Which means that there will be a pendulum shift at some point, right? Like it will
That,
shift back, but it sometimes gets a little bit crazier before it gets better.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And
yeah.
they have to crunch down. If I was looking at numbers, a company I was working at was supposed to be at, I think it was 2 billion, and we were at negative 64 million at the 6 month mark. So it
Mm,
wasn't personal. They had to make hard choices, and I'm glad it wasn't me that had to do that
yeah,
at that
that's right.
point.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And that's a good perspective to have too. Is I think the more we all gain awareness around what has to be done versus what seems like unnecessary, it just helps everybody.
It does. It
Yeah.
absolutely helps everybody with that.
Hmm.
Um, at one point, I don't know how much of this is common knowledge yet, but we both agreed that if we had this tool earlier, it would be
Hmm.
really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, this was created in, I think you were one of the early adopters of it, weren't
Hmm.
you? I was a little
Hmm.
bit later. I was last December,
Yeah.
but it was 2021, like
Yeah.
spring,
Yep.
when
It was.
Pat did this.
Was. I was actually listening in on the podcast where he actually talked about like this is what we came up with
Oh,
a couple
really?
nights ago or whatever. It was like revolutionary. Yeah. So
It
yeah,
is. And
yeah.
it's a really cool story.
But
Um,
dig into that a little bit on the fact that if we had known about this earlier,
yeah,
because I think that's something that you're doing is helping people get it earlier, right?
it is. And it's, yeah, thank you for saying that. It's really cool. And so they, as adults, it doesn't necessarily say adults. I don't even know if it has an age group on it, but as a working professional, that's always been the audience.
Hmm.
Something cool that Pat has designed with this is for the young adults, for 14 to 21, I think is the age range. And so I've had an opportunity to actually get this tool in front of um, a lot of those 14 to 16-year-olds, a lot of nieces and nephews, and we actually had put them all on a Zoom call. I had them all
Mm.
do it about the same time, and we talked it out and we mapped out the family. And it was really interesting, almost one of the big aha moments for the family was that we only had one person that had the frustration of enablement. And
Wow.
listening to adults talk, as one of my nephews kind of got a bad rap for maybe not being the person that was helping, which to my perspective now, so if we force that into that individual, that it frustrates them, not only does it frustrate them, but it steals energy from other people. Like there's so many other people that they could lean on to help with
Mm.
the
Yeah.
younger kiddos, right? And
Yeah.
so even for family and friends with thinking about that kind of stuff, we know who maybe we should call to help with, a plumbing leak, or we know that person that's going to be a bulldog and has to really finish it. Maybe they won't be quite as um, willy-nilly going along with it as I would be, but that tenacity person comes in, takes care of it, and gets out of there no matter what the cost, right? So
Yeah. Mm.
I reflect to when I was a young adult going into college, kind of knowing what I know now. I could see choosing a different profession. I could see
Mhm.
maybe even not doing as much college. Like maybe it would have just been going into a more coaching type of role.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I in retrospect, it was great because I was in the exercise science realm. So I did a bunch of personal training. And again, we go back to creativity and invention. I was never great at creating the workouts, but I would have really high attendance because people wanted to come and exercise because I was that cheerleader, right? I spoke energy into them. And even
Yeah.
though they didn't see it, I saw the greater potential of what they could be if they kept showing up. And that it was just more of that
Mhm.
belief factor because we all know that we need the exercise.
Mhm.
And Jay pokes fun at himself on this. He's like, I know I need to do more. I know I need the exercise, but I need somebody that would really speak it into me to actually get it
Yeah.
out. And that's what I was able to do for people when they were ready. So it was the right career move. It just had a short ceiling and not great for a family.
Yeah.
But and I transitioned out of that. But when I think of young adults now, whether it's your first
Mhm.
job, which all first jobs are tough, you got to go in and just do the grind one way or another.
Mhm.
But if you could go in and talk to your
Mhm.
people leader early on, what if you are a WI and you're a landscaper? Like maybe they give you some
Mhm.
dedicated time to be like, you know what, I need to grow this company. What do you think? It could
Right.
be as something as small as a name change because that person while they're out landscaping, maybe not liking that other work. They're probably wondering what the greater
Mhm.
potential is of their life, other people's lives.
Right.
And they might have the light bulb that you need. And so it also
Mhm.
takes down barriers of age discrimination within the workplace
Yeah.
because you can
Yeah.
go and exercise it. Now, experience is going to come into play with that. And so just because they are an
Mhm.
inventor doesn't mean they're always going to have the right solution because you need some experience with some of
Mhm.
that to help shape it.
Mhm.
But you
Mhm.
might be surprised with what they have. And I've been really, really excited working with the young people and just bringing it to light with that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What a gift that's going to be to some of these that you are helping, because I can imagine, like you just said, maybe wouldn't have done as much college, or maybe would have gotten guided into the stream that I needed to be in a little sooner. um, I think that's amazing.
well,
I
and
think that's
we
great.
see a lot of boomers not handing down their business, right? And a lot of times it's given a bad rap, especially to millennials, which I'm right on that cusp to, they don't want to work as hard as their parents did. That could be it. But I bet a lot of those small business owners are also high tenacity people and they see what it takes. And that just sucks the joy and energy out of me for doing that
Mhm.
type of work. When you
Mhm.
see mom and dad working Friday nights through the weekends getting it done, it's not that I don't like to work hard, but if it's something to where it's payroll and it's paperwork and it is just grinding out all the details or having to discern through all the things, like those things either are my competency or my frustration somewhere in there.
Mhm.
It's not that I couldn't do mom and dad's role, but maybe we sell the business to somebody else and I want to stay within it, but in a different role.
Mhm.
Maybe I just want to
Right.
be a leader, right? Maybe I don't want to
Yeah.
own the company because I don't have that strong tenacity, but it doesn't mean I can't contribute really well and get a lot of joy out of it still.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually working with a small company right now, and they are a family owned company. They've been around for about 40 years.
Mm,
Dad started the company, and the son is the one who's they're thinking would take over. And as we have introduced Working Genius to them, they're also familiar with EOS. I don't know if you know about that. That's an entrepreneurial operating system, based on originally based on a book called Traction,
oh yeah, yep, yep,
kind of taken a life of us. They understand the value of having someone in each role as the integrator for the organization and someone who's the visionary for the organization. What they've realized as they're approaching the transition from dad to handing things off to the son is the dad is invention, like through and through. Makes sense. He came up with the company, right? The son is not invention at all. He is discernment and tenacity, right?
mm,
So, what has helped is as they have learned about the working genius model, instead of the dad looking to the son to, you need to run the company now the way I have run it,
yeah,
the son now has permission to say, I am so grateful for how you have created this company. And now I'm going to run it, but I'm going to run it from my geniuses.
yeah,
What a like just a gift forward, and also to the rest of the organization. Like, they were a little nervous at one point of, will the organization survive because he's so different from his dad? Like,
Yeah.
or is he going
Yeah.
to be able to do it? And it's like, oh, it's actually not bad that he's different than his dad. It's just, how does he leverage that into what this organization can be from here?
Yes. And
Yeah.
it is, when I've had some of these conversations, people think it's experienced or developed. What Pat keeps coming back to, and I can see it in my schooling career, that I was a GE early on for my geniuses. My competencies and my frustrations, I might have a little bit of argument that those have changed a little bit at
Mhm.
times throughout my career, but my geniuses for sure have not. And
Wow.
so when you look at a father-son combination like that,
Yeah.
it's not intentional. He wasn't avoiding trying not to be like dad. Like one of my nephews, I just said we got his results. He's like, I was so frustrated that I wasn't a GT like my dad. Like I wanted to be, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. He wanted to be. He tried. I hear his language and he wants to be like
Mhm.
his dad. But this is something that is truly, when he took the assessment, really thought about what brings him joy and energy.
Wow.
He's a discerner galvanizer, and
That's
that's where he is, and that's just different. He would do a company much different than his dad
yeah.
would.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
bad. They
Not bad.
Everybody can be leaders, right? No matter
That's
what
right.
their geniuses are.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. And then just that other piece, that supporting pillar for that is, yes, any genius can be a leader. And then as quickly as possible, surround yourself with those people that have the other geniuses to make sure that you've got the support. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
good.
it's fun. We're in a world that thrives on inclusion right now. This is an inclusion tool. Like you cannot deny this when you map out a team that you're going to have to go to certain people to get the job done right. And
Mhm.
it's not a matter if you like them or not. If you want
Mhm.
to be productive in a very strategic, intentional,
Mhm.
and uh, quick way, in
Yeah.
my opinion, it's so much faster when you use this tool right.
Mhm.
You can't leave people out.
Right.
And one of the when I talk about leaving people out, one of the teams that I mapped out, there was a wanderer, and one of the individuals was a discerner, and a lot of times they would come in with a discernment and say, this is how we want to do, and she literally said that makes me feel left out. Like I really want to be
Mhm.
invited in early on in the process, and she didn't
Mhm.
know this terminology very well yet, but she knew
Mhm.
what it felt like being left out,
Wow.
and
Wow.
she could feel that she wasn't allowed the right amount of time to think through if this is something that if this was really the right direction or if we were solving the right problem.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was powerful. It was one of those moments where you're almost like, kind of like this is our team building moment. It's happening right now where this
Yes.
confrontation is bringing out the right emotions,
That's
and
good.
it's not personal. Can't help
Yeah.
it. This is how we're designed, and this is
Mhm.
uh, what brings us joy and energy. So we just need to
So
use it
good.
appropriately.
So good. And this is how we can affect change in the level of productivity that we want to see from the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's hard to deny the power of the tool. I truly believe it's going to be revolutionary, and I hope that it pulls this, and AI, I think, is really going to pull small businesses to start catching up on some of the revenue that's missed out
Yeah.
currently. Jay's pulled out the stat a couple times. 58% of business in the US is small business,
hmm
but it's only 30 some percent revenue generating.
That's right.
And I think with the power of Chat GBT filling in the geniuses that you're missing and being able to have that
hmm
partner,
hmm
you might see a lot better action than trying to do all six of these geniuses on your own,
Mm, so
un-
true.
until you get the money through the door to where you can start hiring a team, because that's the
That's
biggest
right.
drawback in the beginning. Money
That is it.
doesn't flow right in right away a lot
That's
of
right.
times.
That's right. That's right. The work, yes, that's right. The work to be done. It's important.
Yeah,
Good.
it makes
Good.
it hard. Well, we
Yeah.
have about 5 minutes left here.
Mhm.
Um, So if you were to give a pitch on what your audience would look like, who would
Mhm.
be the right people that would need Denise as an executive
Mhm.
coach? How would
Mhm.
you how would you invite them in? Where should they go? What would that look like?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, really, the ideal client for me is that woman leader. She's maybe in middle management, or maybe she's even in executive upper level management. She is trying to figure out. I know that I am shaped for this, but I'm actually not sure that I have all the tools that I need.
Mm,
It may be because she's looking at a promotion, or she's just recently gotten into promotion and she's not sure she's got all of the equipping that she needs. It also could be there's just a lot. She's juggling a lot of things. She's a mom and she's a high level executive, and she's trying to figure out how do I keep all the pieces in motion without dropping everything.
yeah.
Um, and so, what I've done is I have loved leveraging Working Genius with my coaching. So, I actually did an initial coaching session just yesterday with a new client, and the joy of being able to first introduce her a few weeks ago to Working Genius, and then unpack that yesterday, kind of
Mm,
as a this is how we're going to coach to you based on these are the areas that I know your strengths are. And so now, as you tell me what you're wanting help with, I can say, okay, this is how we look at it through the lens of the Working Genius. So this person in particular, she's in middle management. She has been given an opportunity to sit on the SLT team, and she's excited for it, and at the same time wanting to make sure that she does know that she's got what she needs in order to be prepared
yeah.
for it. So the Working Genius piece has already, just in the couple weeks that she's been exposed to it, has already helped her see this is why I show up to meetings the way I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
It,
And
the
yeah, I just appreciate you bringing that up. That's great. That's great.
this the stories are endless with this when it gives, and all of these tools are great. They're all self-awareness, right?
Hmm.
But again, you talked about the implementation process, how quick it is.
Yeah.
It's so much different. I used to hear about disc, and they tried to put everybody's disc on their badges, and really what all they found out, they took it off pretty quickly because all the D's had these red badges, and it made people avoid them. Like they were worried about the dominator, right? Or having the wrong conversations. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
inclusion, it wasn't
No.
tried to implement it. And disc is a great tool. It's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
I loved going through it. It
Yeah.
was really helpful. I didn't find that it was as easy, but it helped bring perspective in the conversations on where they might be coming from.
Hmm.
But I thought it was hard to leverage other people to get
Yeah.
the work done. And I think that's
Yeah.
where Working Genius is different. And
I think so.
sounds like
I think so.
sounds like you're setting this individual up, helping
Yeah.
assist them to where they
Yes.
need to go,
I think
rally
so.
them.
And I think that's the thing. I love DISC as well. I think DISC helped me know a little bit more about who I am,
Hmm.
where Working Genius helps me know how do I show up to my work.
Mm,
So
yes.
yeah,
What were you for disc? Or what
yes,
are
that's
you?
right. Oh, pardon.
What are you for disc?
For DISC, I used to tell people I was a recovering C. Because for so long I thought that I had to be the C. So I might maybe like your nephew. Like I thought I was supposed to be like this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am I. Yeah.
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 And
And
that,
you?
yes, the
Yeah.
same. Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely where I've been.
That's
And
right.
all of these, I talked about strength finders earlier. I think they can all
Hmm.
play into this, and they have pieces of it. Again, I just think Working Genius simplifies it,
Yeah.
allows it to be implemented, and really the most the biggest part is productivity of it.
That's it.
You
Yeah.
you map a team out,
Hmm.
you're able to leverage each other's strengths, makes everybody happier, makes everybody want to work more.
Hmm.
Like, how nice
It's
would that
true.
be? You don't
It's
have to make people do
yes.
overtime now.
Right.
Now they
Right.
want to do overtime because they love that project and they're working
Yes.
the right areas. So
That's
that's
exactly
that's
right. That's
that's one of the
exactly right.
areas. So
Yep. Yep.
Denise,
Wow,
thank you
Kyle,
so much.
thank you so much. This has been
Yeah,
great.
it's been so much fun. I love talking this. I'm going to be energized for hours from this conversation, but it was
That's
great
right.
having you on. Thank you, everybody that was following along with us on
Yes.
10X Live. Jay will be back. We'll bring it again. We'll bring on guest speakers as needed. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, thanks for showing up. Keep up with your AI. Keep up with your 6 types of working geniuses, and
Mhm.
reach out if you need us. Take
Great.
care.
Have a great one. Bye.